Hello and welcome to The Future is Female. I'm your host, Amna, joined by Gabby Ducharme. Gabby, how are we doing this Monday?
I'm doing good. I'm getting stuff done. Like enterprise projects and job applications and other things that haunt me outside of Bill Austin. But for the next hour, I can just let it all go.
Okay,
because
that sounds amazing because I feel haunted by that too. And I'd like just an hour. Let's not think about it.
We're haunted by schoolwork, and I believe our third co-host, Nicole Pinter, is haunted by the Chicago Bears right now because they're playing Monday Night Football, and it's not going very well.
Ooh, no.
But other than that, I'm doing okay. We have such a packed show today, so I'm so excited to rip into it.
That we do. Let's get started. ASU women's basketball kicks off tomorrow, tips off rather, against Northern Colorado. Gabby, you'll be on the call for that game.
Yes, I will be an analyst on the ASU live stream, so tune in for that. It should be an interesting game. I spoke to Charlie Turner-Thorne earlier today, and I can't really disclose what we discussed, but if you want to hear, tune into the game tomorrow. The first game of the season, ASU struggled mightily last year, not unlike a lot of other teams in this country, because,
it was a weird year.
It was a very weird year. It was 12-12 last season. Lots of new faces, too. Amna, break it down for us. Who came and who went in the revolving door that was ASU women's basketball this offseason?
Ooh, yeah. So outgoing, they had 7 players leave. 3 of them transferred. Sydney Caldwell transferred to Penn. Ebony Walker transferred to Syracuse. And Keely Burton-Oliver, who didn't log any minutes, transferred to Washington State. Both Jamie Loera and Iris Imbolito, unfortunately, they retired for medical reasons, which is just so tough. Injuries suck. Like, you and I both know that. We both, you have more severe knee injuries, me a torn ACL, but that, for me, that, ended my, junior season in high school. So, It's just so tough.
I know. I think, from what I understood about Iris Imbolito, this is just social media. This isn't really intel from coach or anything like that. But it feels like she retired due to mental health. She posted on Instagram, I don't remember when, maybe in August, saying it's time to move on and focus on me.
Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah.
Of knowing your boundaries.
Of knowing your limit, too. I feel like a lot of players feel that pressure to do the 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And to do it right, because you only get one chance to do it.
Exactly.
But it always felt like she was, I don't know, it always felt like she was a little bit more distant, probably because she was an international player. She was not super open on media availability, but she was so long and athletic on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me almost feels like she never reached her full potential as a player, which is a shame. And then, Jamie Lewetta, just ridden by injury. Absolutely ridden by injury. I remember Gareth Kwok did a story about her for Cronkite Sports about a year and a half ago now, almost 2 years ago. And he talked about her potential on that team. You know that her and Jade Van Hefty were best friends?
I did not know that, no.
They were roommates their freshman year of college together. And it's such a shame to see Van Hefty still on the team. It's such a shame to see her counterpart, her partner in crime, never really meet her full potential as an athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's just incredibly tough. Only one senior on the team last year, Brianna Sanders, she graduated.
Yeah.
Very different from the year before when all of their star players were seniors and had to end their seasons early because of the pandemic. And finally, the last player who left was Jade Melbourne, who turned professional. Player from Australia, sort of had her experience in the big leagues a little bit and decided that's where she wanted to be. Meanwhile, incoming, probably the biggest standout, Jade Lavelle from Boise State.
That's a killer pickup for the Sun Devils.
It absolutely is. She averaged over 17 points last year with Boise. And this is for a Sun Devil team that struggled to score last year.
I talked about it last week for a pregame show that I was on, and I've talked about it as well in my prep for the game. You need an instant offensive weapon. You need somebody besides Taya Hansen or Jaden Simmons who can get it done, because Hansen and Simmons don't do it enough or consistently enough. No offense to both of them, but they're very dynamic in other options on the court. You need someone who can come in and smack the defense in the mouth the moment they get in. That's what Jade Lavelle can do.
Mm-hmm. Last year, the team shot 33% from the field. 33.
Their best three-point shooter last season was Taya Hansen, and I think Taya shot 39% from behind the arc.
I believe it was 34.
34%.
Yeah.
That was their best three-point shooter a season ago.
As a team, they shot 26. 26%. So Jade is definitely going to help them out on the offensive end there. And she grew up a little bit in Scottsdale, spent some time growing up. So for her, it's a little bit of coming home. Should be, just exciting in general. But then to play, she's a senior, right? If I'm remembering correctly.
She is.
To play your last year at home with a new team is interesting. We'll see how it turns out, but she'll definitely be needed on the offensive end. Also coming in, Male Giles from Rutgers played alongside Arella Garantes, who is on the Sparks. Gabby and I both covered her this season. I didn't know that. That's fun.
Isn't that exciting?
That is.
I didn't realize it until I was looking. I was like, why do I recognize Rutgers?
Yeah.
And I had to kind of dig back in the archives a little bit, because a lot of people didn't discuss Arella coming from Rutgers. It's just not really a powerhouse program. But it just goes to show how small the world of basketball is, right? Because one player that we covered over the summer, or one player that worked for the team that I worked for, and so now to see something like that come full circle, it's something that I want to ask Giles about.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask her about what was it like to play with a WNBA talent, and now you come to ASU, because Arizona State women's basketball is going to retire Breon January's number on November 12th. In about a week, they're going to retire her number, and it's going to be a very big deal. It's a big ceremony. I want to ask her, what is that like coming from playing alongside a top 10 WNBA pick to now witnessing a program that has a WNBA legend on their team?
Yeah.
Because to make the WNBA is difficult, right? There's only like 3 rounds of picks. So
only 12 teams.
Yeah, 12 teams total. It's small. It's the hardest league in the world to get drafted into.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest league in the world. Harder than the NBA, harder than the NFL especially, way harder than the Major League Baseball.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I want to ask her about it, because I think it's kind of cool that she played alongside a WNBA talent that you and I both covered so in-depthly over the summer.
Yeah. Giles was there for 4 years and also had a extra year of eligibility due to COVID. So she'll be using that here. She's technically a graduate transfer because she did graduate.
So she'll get her master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
How cool would that be to use an extra year of eligibility to get your master's?
Very cool. Very cool. They also picked up another transfer, and I so dearly do not want to butcher her name.
I got an idea today of how you pronounce it. Adriana Basalo. I'm going to confirm that tomorrow, but they call her Shauna.
Shauna.
Shauna Basalo. Yeah, Shauna Basalo. That's her nickname on the team, at least. Maybe it's because her teammates were butchering her name too much as well. I can't imagine we're the first ones to do that.
Mm-hmm.
She's another transfer. And then they also have incoming freshman Meg Newman, who...
Unfortunately.
Oh, God, that broke my heart.
Tore her ACL. An official first day of practice. The first day. That is rough.
From your perspective, as someone who has gone through that injury, what is it like when it first happens?
When it first happens, you feel it. Like, you know there's something wrong. You cannot walk on it. It's very sore. Unless you're Klay Thompson, of course.
You just walk off as if nothing's wrong.
You shoot a couple threes and some free throws. But no, for me, I like fell to the ground and I could not get up. Like, I needed to be carried off, and I was in immense amount of pain, and it quickly tightened up and swelled up like crazy. And then later had surgery, and it's a tough road back. I'm by no means like, you know, a hardcore athlete, so it was harder for me. I imagine for Meg, she'll, in the training staff that they have here, ASU, will be able to get her healthy, but it's tough, especially if you're a freshman.
Yeah.
It's your first day of practice. Like, mentally, that sucks. Mentally, I feel like is sometimes harder than the actual injury itself.
Yeah. The one good part I can kind of take away from this, and this is a tiny, tiny good part, but she injured herself, or she got injured so early on, at least there's no doubt whatsoever that she can take a redshirt year.
Yeah.
That she's going to get this entire year of her life back. And I've heard some athletes say that the torn ACL journey, the journey they go through with injury, ends up being the biggest blessing in disguise. So I hope that the injury ends up being some kind of blessing in disguise long term for her, just because luckily she'll get this year back. She'll be able to redshirt. Maybe she can use it to even be a graduate transfer somewhere else if she wants to. There's so many different options that she has. So that's what I'm hoping, that it just becomes a blessing in disguise, that it happened so early on. There was nothing, almost like she hadn't even started. So there wasn't as much, hopefully there wasn't as much feeling of loss this year, because she hadn't built anything up yet. She has the chance to literally start from square one no matter what, but now she might even come back bigger, stronger, faster because of how she has to rehab her body and the people she'll be working with at ASU to rehab her body.
I mean, if there's no optimal time to tear your ACL, but if there is, it would technically be now. So, you know, hopefully she gets healthy and we see what she can do next season. As for this season, there's one more incoming player, Isadora Souza from Chipola College. She was in NJCAA, said that right, two-time All-American in the last couple seasons, and she is a Brazilian native, and she'll definitely be able to help facilitate that offense and get things moving a little bit more for them.
Yeah. I mean, such big turnover for this team. 7 players out, 5 ones come in.
Yep.
Amna, what are your expectations for this new squad?
I imagine they're going to bounce back. I don't think they're going to do as bad as they did last season. Also, just because the COVID, I mean, it's still an issue. It absolutely still is an issue. But we have some things that make it a little bit less. Last winter was literally insane, and they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row postponed.
Yeah. Canceled, right?
Yeah,
not just postponed. Canceled.
I mean, it says postponed here on the website, but yeah, canceled. That holds a ton of momentum, and we saw that with the football team last season. We saw that with the men's team, with the men's basketball team last year, and the same thing with the women's basketball team. So I think with that sort of out of the way a little bit, they'll be able to get some more consistency when playing, and hopefully a little bit more offense, and they'll be able to tighten up some issues that they had. But I mean, it's still tough when you have that much turnover. What is exactly, what's it exactly going to look like? It's tough to know ahead of time.
It is. It is very tough to know ahead of time.
How are they all going to gel?
I know. Definitely, I have 3 big takeaways from the research I've done, from what I understand, people who went to Media Day last week. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there due to class, but Number one, they're fast.
Mm-hmm.
They're fast, and they're not as young as people think they are. They're actually a very veteran team, even though they only lost one girl to graduation last year. Number two, they have some bucket getters on this team now. Jade Lavelle being the most obvious thought in people's head. But then Taya Hansen being a year older, Jaden Simmons being a year more mature. Those are probably going to be their three big, that three-headed monster. Kind of like they had a few years ago with Robbie Ryan, Riley Richardson, and Jatavia Tapley.
Mm-hmm.
Those, like, that threesome is now turning into Taya at forward, Lavelle at, isn't she like a guard-forward combo, and then Jaden Simmons at point guard.
Mm-hmm.
So they have their big three. They play fast. They're a bit of a veteran squad, and they don't have a break in the schedule. Pac-12 play is going to be brutal this year.
Mm-hmm.
You got UCLA, Stanford, Oregon's back. Oregon State's still really tough. You know, you have schools that went to the NCAA tournament last year and didn't just go, but won.
2 teams in the championship, Stanford and Arizona. The Pac-12, I mean, when you talk about, I mean, we were pretty big on it during the tournament. When you say back the pack, like, you better mean women's basketball too, because they are much, I mean, they're powerhouse.
It doesn't get any better than Pac-12 women's basketball in college sports.
Mm-mm.
SEC football is not as good as Pac-12 women's basketball. And yes, I'm going to go on the record and say that. And yes, I'm saying that on this radio show. Because the SEC doesn't produce the 2 teams playing in the national championship game year in and year out. It's usually a team from the ACC and a team from the SEC. And let's be real, it's Alabama. It's not the entire conference. It's Alabama.
No, not at all.
In the Pac-12, it's Arizona, Stanford, Oregon, Oregon State, UCLA, and then USC, ASU are all hovering right around there.
Mm-hmm.
And they've produced stars like Sabrina Ionescu, you know, Kelsey Plum, Ruthie Heberb, Satu Sabali, Monique Billings, Jordan Canada. All of those players are in the WNBA right now and have won titles, won MVP awards, won Michaela Onyenwere. She won Rookie of the Year last year for the New York Liberty. Every single one of those players came from the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
In conclusion, ASU has their work cut out for them.
That they do. I mean, we didn't even mention, 2 players that we covered, Nneka and Shanae, who played at Stanford.
I'm only thinking in the last 3 or 4 years since I've been in college.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
I mean, it dates back. I mean, Tara Vanderveer is an absolute legend. So the Pac-12 has been doing this for a while, and they're going to continue to do it. Meanwhile, the other huge blue blood school for women's basketball, UConn, ranked number 2 in national rankings. Gabby?
They have Paige Beckers and Ozzie Fudd.
Mm-hmm.
And they're ranked number 2.
Wait, so who's number 1?
I'm pretty sure it's Stanford.
Okay. Well, give them their flowers. They just won
No, it's South Carolina.
South Carolina. Okay. Dawn Staley. We love Dawn Staley.
Yeah, we stand Dawn Staley. Even though she snubbed Nneka this summer, we still stand Dawn Staley.
To be honest, I mean, this is a little bit of a sidebar. I don't think she had a ton of power to decide that. Someone else, another coach may have more power in that.
You can't hear this, but my eye roll is so unbelievably powerful. It's shaking the entire room right now. I could talk about this for a long time.
I
know. I roll my eyes just because Dawn Staley, if she had really wanted Nneka on that team, could have stepped in, put her foot down. That was me doing that. She could have stepped in, put her foot down, and said, no, get Nneka Nwumke on this team. I think she could have. I do. Anyways, her team is number 1 in the country going into the preseason. UConn's number 2. Stanford's number 3. Maryland is number 4. North Carolina State is number 5. Stanford's number 3.
Oh. They just won a national championship, and they didn't lose a ton of players.
No. They didn't lose. They barely lost anyone. They lost, like, Anna Wilson.
Yeah.
They still have Haley Jones.
Mm-hmm.
They still have the twins that I'm blanking on their names right now.
Yeah,
Cam and there's a set of twins in my grade in the senior class. Yeah, I mean they're still tearing it up on the court. But anyways, UConn being number 2, a little bit shocking in my eyes. Paige Beckers and Ozzie Fudd, really the best friend duo, freshman and sophomore. You're gonna bet against them? Okay, good luck. UCLA, going back into the Pac-12, UCLA got the number 2 commit in the class of 2022. No, I'm not talking about college. Yes, I'm talking about high school. Yes, that makes me feel old. Her first name is Kiki. Kiki Rice is her name. She's the number 1 point guard in the class, and she's the number 2 player in the class overall. She's going to round out the highest ranked class for UCLA women's basketball since 2014.
Wow.
You know who was in the class of 2014? Jordan Canada and Monique Billings.
Oh my gosh.
Among others.
Wow.
She chose UCLA over UConn, Stanford, Maryland.
Wow.
So she chose, here's the list. Her top 11 were Stanford, Maryland, Duke, UConn, North Carolina, UCLA, Arizona, Louisville, Boston College, Yale, and Michigan. Stanford, Maryland, Arizona, UConn. 3 of those 4 teams are in the top 5 in the nation right now, ranking-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And she chose UCLA over all of them. UCLA is ranked number 20 in the AP Top 25 poll going into this season.
Yeah.
Rice isn't on the team right now, obviously. She's in the class of 2022, but...
You know what I find surprising? Sitting there at 22. Arizona. 22?
The disrespect for the West Coast teams is still real.
Oh, man. Like, I know that we are Arizona State and all that, but Adia Barnes has something special over there. And for them to be 22 after making the national championship game when no one thought that they would make it there, oof.
Unless you are coached by Tara Vanderveer, the disrespect is real. Oregon's 10. They have Sedona Prince coming back. Oregon is 10.
Yeah.
The disrespect for the Pac-12 because they're out west. Like, people talk about it all the time in football.
Yeah.
Not football, women's basketball. Unless you're Tara Vanderveer's player, you're disrespected.
Yeah. Which is ridiculous because the Pac-12 is the Pac-12 in women's basketball. Like, they are it.
They are. 2 years ago, when Sabrina Ionescu was a senior, it was Oregon, Stanford, Oregon State, Arizona, and UCLA were all ranked in the top 25.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon was like the only school in the actual top 5, though. Oregon State was up there, too, until they were upset by ASU at Desert Financial Arena. Then they dropped out of the top 5. And they, like, never returned, even though they barely lost a game that season. It was like lightning in a bottle that weekend in Tempe when Arizona State beat Sabrina Ionescu.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Company. So, yeah, the disrespect is so real for this conference unless you're Stanford.
Yeah.
22, and you're the defending national champion runner-ups?
Yep.
It's because they lost Ari McDonald, which, by the way, it's Ari, not Ari.
Yes. Get our name correctly. It is Ari.
And if you don't know it, own up to the fact that you don't know it. And figure out how to say it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Alrighty. Moving on here. Baylor gets a new head coach. Nikki Colin? Am I saying that right?
Nikki Collin, I think.
Colin? Yeah.
Yeah, Nikki Collin replaces Kim Mulkey. The main reason I put this was not because of Nikki Collin, but because of Kim Mulkey.
Yeah, Kim. Kim is now at LSU. I was about to say ASU.
I would cry if she came to ASU.
The SU,
not tears of joy.
The SU for me always starts with an A. But no, LSU, which I'm
not a fan.
Good fit for Kim. But no, I get what you mean.
I'm just not a fan of Mulkey.
No.
I think her philosophy as a coach is to bog you down until you got nothing left in the tank, and I just don't think that's the right way to coach. I prefer Charlie Turner-Thorne's style.
Yeah. I mean, one has been more, in the terms of championships, has been more successful than the other, but I get what you mean. I'm totally with that.
Yeah, that's about all I got on women's basketball. What about you, Amna? What are you most excited for this season?
Oof. Honestly, just to have, like, fans back. And just to have a somewhat normal season. Yeah. Looking forward to it. Alrighty. We are going to take a quick break here on The Future is Female on Blaze Radio and BlazeRadioOnline.com.
Mom, can we stop at Blaze Radio?
No, we have Blaze Radio at home.
But the Blaze Radio at home doesn't taste good.
Would you stop complaining? I'll turn this car right around.
We promise that the Blaze Radio at home is always good and is available 24/7 on BlazeRadioOnline.com.
Bienvenido a la nueva show de Blaze Radio, Salsa Season, con me, Zach,
Mallory and Susan.
Salsa Season, Blaze Radio, BlazeRadioOnline.com, from 11 p.m., taking you into Thursdays. On Wednesdays, tune in for all your spicy takes, salsa reviews, and much, much more. Gracias. Adios.
Oh no! It's salsa season!
Welcome back to The Future is Female. Alrighty, let's get into it with some NFL talk. The Cardinals bounce back after a very interesting loss to the Packers, in which they almost had a chance, but yeah. Now they're back on the winning column, winning 31-17 at the 49ers without Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, who, may have missed that one pass.
Just a little.
Just a little bit.
Just a little.
Chase Edmonds went out early in the first quarter. So instead, James Conner and Eno Benjamin, step up in his place. Conner had 173 yards, 96 rushing, 77 receiving. Huge game for him. Eno had 9 carries with 39 yards. That's the largest amount of time he's had with Cardinals on the field. How did they look to you?
No, more like yes. I copied that one from Scotty Gage.
Oh, man.
Of course I copied it from Scotty Gage. It's from one of his recap packages like 2 years ago. Cardinals are legit.
Yeah.
I thought it was fool's gold initially. I thought it was September football, perfect weather, the desert.
It's November now.
It's November, friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they bounce back, and meanwhile, in that NFC West, the Rams lose to the Titans on Sunday night. And just look. Oh, my God. I can't even... Derrick Henry did not play in that game. He has a broken foot. And they looked out of sync. Matt Stafford had probably his worst game of the season.
Derrick Henry is a tank.
Yeah.
He's a tank of a human being. Were they on the road for that one?
No, it was at SoFi.
That's okay, but the Titans were on the road for that one.
The Titans, yeah.
And they went into SoFi and won.
Mm-hmm.
Against, Aaron Donald.
Yeah, and Von Miller in his debut game with the Rams.
Oh, that's one way to spoil a debut.
Yeah. Yeah. And now the Cardinals, they're front and center in the NFC West and looking like the favorite in that division.
That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. The Cardinals, like I mentioned, didn't have 2 of their best players on offense. They didn't have Kyler Murray.
I mean, you don't even have your starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And you go in and you win a huge game. A game where you needed to prove that you were legit, that it's not just first half fool's gold, that you're not going to get bogged down by injury. The question is, can it translate to the postseason?
Yeah, that's the question. We'll get there when. I mean, I don't know what that'll look like for them. They haven't been there, so we'll see. But they'll be there this season, and we'll get to see Kyler under the brightest lights.
Sun Devil reunion with Ayuk and ES
I know. That just makes me like happy. Like those guys were a couple years ago were on the same team, and were the top tier players there, and now they both scored in the game.
As
So, good for
someone who went to college during the Ayuk, Benjamin era at ASU, at least for part of it, it was fun to watch them play.
Oh yeah.
Eno was a tank in college. He was an absolute tank. And I mean, we're gonna get to ASU football in a minute, but Eno was one of the better running backs that ASU's ever had in their history. Brandon Ayuk looked like a mini version of N'Keal Harry when he was here. It was fun. It was really fun. Sun Devil reunions, I'm all for it in the NFL especially.
Absolutely. And typically, we would have a segment, a recurring segment, a Bears Corner. But our co-host, Nicole, is not here today. I know she is watching the game, though. It is currently 0-14 Steelers with 28 seconds left in the half. Nicole, our thoughts go out to you. I'm sure we'll hear all about it next week.
At 6:21 p.m., Nicole tweeted, "I'm tired of this game already." That was almost an hour and a half ago. It's 7:35 p.m. right now here in Arizona. She says, and then we tweeted it, or I retweeted it onto our show's page, and I said, context of where our at Nicole Pinter 6 is this evening. Sounds like it'll be a long night for our Bears Corner host. She says, "I swear I'm not missing the show because of the Bears game." I respond, "Presuming you are, that's why we love you anyways."
Yes.
Go wallow in your pain of your crappy football team
Yes.
tonight, Nicole.
And who knows? Maybe Matt Nagy will finally get the can, and Nicole can breathe. Who knows? You'll find out next week on Bears Corner.
Just all the more reason to tune into next week's show, folks.
Absolutely. And one last thing on the NFL. And it's been in the news everywhere, but we have to talk about it as well because we have lots of thoughts. Aaron Rodgers. Good old Aaron. I have written here, Mr. Critical Thinker, because that is what he claims to be, a critical thinker. Apparently outsmarting all of us. We have no idea how to think for ourselves. No clue.
We uncultured swines, vaccinated, wearing our masks in studio, just don't know.
We have no idea. No clue.
The 40-year-old that's been getting his head impounded for the last 30 years of his life knows more.
Okay, I was not going to go that far, but you know what? You said it, not me.
I probably shouldn't have said that, but it's okay.
He tested positive for COVID-19 on November 3rd, and it was later reported that he was not vaccinated. At the beginning of the season, reporters asked him if he was, and he said, quote, "Yeah, I've been immunized." Which, at the time, it was like, okay, he's vaccinated. Nope. Apparently, he consulted not a doctor, Joe Rogan, of how to immunize oneself and all of that. He said that all on the Pat McAfee's podcast, where in the first minute he used the terms cancel culture, woke mob, and witch hunt, which, not a good sign. Not a good sign at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And public perception of him is not good right now.
It's not.
Him going on that podcast, and he was like, before I, the nail in the coffin of my cancel culture, whatever, he thought he was clearing up some blatant lies that were being told about him. And instead, he honestly made a fool of himself.
He did.
Uh-huh.
He did. He made a fool of himself and, gave the people of society, the cancel culture, aka everyone in society, a reason to call him an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, I'm tired of hearing cancel culture, woke mob when it comes to the vaccine. Like, this is science, people. Like, we're not talking about politics. We're not talking about an issue that's dividing the right and left. This is science. And although it is turned political, it's not. It's just not.
The crazy part is the people who turned COVID-19 political told him go out and get vaccinated. He is more than likely a very conservatively leaning political person, meaning he probably backs people like Donald Trump. Trump came out and said, go get the vaccine. Trump and his family got the vaccine. Is Trump a part of the woke mob, my good sir? Is he? Is your president a part of the mob?
Oh, man.
Is he witch hunting you to get the vaccine?
Yeah. He also said that he had an allergy of the mRNA strand, or if I'm saying that correctly, but he had an allergy in the ingredients of the mRNA. Which, okay, fine. We'll take your word for that. There's no way for us at this point to prove that that's not true. Then he could have taken the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. He said, well, the blood clot issue made him not want to do that. That was an issue for women of a certain age, and it was extremely, extremely rare.
He would have had more likelihood of crashing in, like, the airplane he took to Hawaii this offseason with Shailene Woodley than he would have of clotting from the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Oh, man. Oh, man. And then the worst part of it, he quoted Martin Luther King Jr. as if that was the same thing. What he's doing compared to MLK's martyr journey. He said, he quoted this quote, "You have a moral obligation to object unjust rules and rules that made no sense." MLK is talking about segregation, Jim Crow, systemic racism. He's talking about the NFL, a private company, a private entity, wanting their players and others to get vaccinated.
The woke mob wants him vaccinated. The players' union is the woke mob. Because the players' union, they were the ones who agreed to the protocol set in place for people who were and were not vaccinated.
Yeah.
The people who represent him and the league he plays in are apparently a part of the woke mob and the witch hunt.
Yeah. That, for me, was the worst part. It was absolutely, like, tone deaf, and it just showed me, where is your head? Like, oh, this guy is, he's really like that. Okay, I gotcha. Because it's one thing to, throw out those terms that are really annoying, cancel culture, all that stuff, which I don't think really exists. Like, we can have a whole debate over that. But when you try to co-opt a struggle that is completely different, they are night and day. That, to me, is the worst part of it.
The crazy part is that it's probably barely scratching the surface, and no matter how much people talk about it or don't talk about it, he's still gonna make a lot of money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
People will react about it for like the next week. Mm-hmm. Then he'll come back at the end of November, like the Thanksgiving game. He'll play great, and then everybody will go back to praising him anyways.
Yeah.
That's how it works in men's sports.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works in the NFL in particular.
Especially when you're a very successful white man.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to be highly regarded as a heroine at the end of this.
Yeah.
We'll see we'll see. We'll see if people continue to hold him accountable for his actions and for what he said, even after it
And just
gets
for
out of mainstream
lying.
media.
Like, he just straight up lied.
He put a lot of people in danger too.
Uh-huh.
By not wearing a mask and being unvaccinated and clearly doing things that put him in danger of catching the virus.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask at press conferences around porters who do have their masks and probably have a vaccine mandate, but you're putting them at risk. I mean, they could have small children. They could have people who aren't able to get vaccinated at home, and you're there without a mask. It's just irresponsible to lie about it. Like, okay, be upfront about it. Talk about how you don't want to get it. Fine. Like, people have praised body autonomy. Whatever. Go ahead. At least just say that.
Crazy part is you're going to force media members to be vaccinated to sit in that room, but you're not going to force your players to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Power dynamics.
It defeats the purpose. I mean, it's just a means for teams to continue to flex their muscles on media members.
Yeah.
It's
and
not-
it just goes to show, like I said, who has power in the room and who doesn't.
It's a means to show that the NFL is still going to be in charge no matter what.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers is the king of it all, unfortunately.
Oof. Last year's MVP. Anyhow, moving on to college football. ASU also bounced back like the Cardinals. They did not have a good week last week. Gabby, you were there for that, calling the game. But this week, they beat USC 32-16.
It was a good game. Amil, my bestie since freshman year, the USC fan, fight on with the peace sign, because, yeah, that's logical. Suck it. Just going to start off with that. If you're a Mill, you know what I'm talking about. USC didn't have a starter. Keenan Slovis kept getting benched. I don't understand why.
Oof.
The running back that I alluded to a few minutes ago. Not yes, Benjamin, but Rashad White. Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Week. Rushed for over 200 yards.
200, man.
200 in one football game. Had his longest touchdown, I think, was a 59-yard run. I think he had two rushing touchdowns on the night. 202 yards rushing. And we talked about this on my broadcast the week before. ASU football has to control the ball on the ground if they want to control the game. Rashad White allows you to do that. He didn't play against Washington State. I don't know why. But having him back against USC is the reason they won that football game.
Mm-hmm.
Amna, did you watch the game at all?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh yeah, you were at a gymnastics meet.
I was at a youth gymnastics meet for a story that I'm working on, but I did, keep up with the score, and I was surprised to see them sort of bounce back as well as they did. Obviously, they probably want to put that Washington State game as far back in their minds as possible and really prove themselves, which they absolutely did.
It was also Military Appreciation Night, Pat Tillman's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So it was also family weekend, I know, because shout out to my mom. She came to town.
Mona.
Shout out Mona. You're the GOAT, Mom. Love you. I think Amna agrees with me.
I do.
Thanks for taking care of us all summer, Mom. I appreciate you. Getting me through my all those hours I spent driving back and forth to LA and having dinner ready for me when I got home at crazy hours of the night, just for me to wake up at 7 o'clock the next morning to go to a swim meet, and then wake up the next day on Father's Day at 8 a.m. to drive back out to LA. Mom, I love you for that. That was a rough week. That was one of the best weeks of the internship, though. That was like mid-June when I did that. That was a bit of a diatribe. My mother, love you, Mom, miss you already. But yeah, it was Military Appreciation Night. It was Pat Tillman's birthday. Chase Lucas, the sixth-year captain, cornerback, he played really well on Saturday night.
Yeah.
had a ton of tips, knocked the ball out of bounds, kept track of his wide receivers on USC like nobody's business. He did stuff that doesn't show up in the scorebook.
Yeah.
He only has one more home game in a Sun Devil uniform, 6 years in.
Good for Chase.
You go, Chase.
He is a Sun Devil through and through. When you think Sun Devil, you think Chase Lucas.
You 100% think Chase Lucas. Sammy Miller did a fantastic profile piece on him for Cronkite Sports. Go check that out on their page. It's a fantastic piece with N'Keal Harry, Herm Edwards, Antonio Pierce, Chase himself. A lot of good sourcing and just give some perspective to the Arizona native.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coming up, the Sun Devils will be at Washington. Another Pac-12 matchup.
They've got 2 tough road games ahead.
Mm,
They don't. The next time they return home will be the final game of the regular season against Arizona.
Yeah.
These 2 road games, they've already punched their ticket to go to a bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
But these 2 road games will kind of decide whether or not they're in contention to go to the Rose Bowl or if they're going to the
some undisclosed sponsored random
the
bowl
Beefo
game.
Brady Bowl in Las Vegas, Nevada on December 18th.
Yeah. Yeah. So they'll be at Washington and Oregon State.
They're going up north, basically,
Yeah.
to colder weather, not the desert. It's not 80 degrees in November in those places.
Nope. And then they will finish out the season, like you mentioned, against Arizona, who got their first win in a very, very long time. Like,
2
I think it
years?
was over 700 days. Like, it was a very long time.
Yeah, two-ish years.
Ooh, man.
The memes are my favorite. If you haven't won a football game in 2 years, then you Arizona. If you haven't won a football game since before COVID-19 struck, you Arizona.
Yeah. 763 days since they had won a football game. That is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I think that's going to do it basically for our college football talk as well.
Yep.
Going to end off by burning Arizona. Shout out ASU.
Yes. And moving it on to the NBA, something we just want to touch on. The Sarver report that came out, ESPN reported a bombshell of a report where they had over 70 sources, which is ridiculous. There was allegations of misogyny, racism, sexism. There was allegations that he used the N-word and said, quote, "These N-words need an N-word," when talking about getting a black head coach. It was extremely terrible to read. There's no smoking gun, there's no video, there's no nothing, but there are 70 employees talking about just the toxic work culture at the Suns. Not many went on record, but Earl Watson, former coach, did go on record, and that was pretty brave of him to do.
That was incredibly brave of him to do. My heart sunk when I read the report.
Mm-hmm.
And then we watched it because we were in the bureau last week at Cronkite News when Malika Andrews and Baxter Holmes spoke about it.
Yeah.
Malika interviewed Baxter live on NBA Today.
Mm-hmm.
And he just talked about the level of reporting that you have to do here. I complain about having to get 3 sources for a story. All of a sudden, I think I'm going to shut my mouth now because 70 sources.
Uh-huh. And we've met people who've been close to the Suns organization, and while, there's no confirmation on if these allegations, all of them are true, but we know how toxic that work culture is from other people firsthand.
Yeah. Yeah, we've heard about how toxic the work environment can be there sometimes, and I don't know if it's like that for every single person that works there, because there are some people who have worked there for 20 plus years, and who have loved it. But
Mhm.
if
Obviously,
even,
there's enough.
yeah, if even half of what happened in that article is true, if even one part of that article is true, this man should not be owning an NBA team.
Yeah. Well, as soon as the report came out, the NBA announced that they are going to be launching an investigation into Sarver. Sarver pushed back and basically said that this is, against journalistic integrity. But I will mention the timeline of it all. A couple weeks ago, it was leaked that the ESPN report was coming out. ESPN waited. They took their time. They vetted it. I'm sure the very expensive legal department at ESPN made sure that there is not a hole in this story. And I think for me, the biggest thing that stuck out was when a female employee claimed that she was sexually assaulted by another employee at the organization. They simply moved her desk. And HR, Baxter Holmes reported that HR would tell people, just sue us instead. Don't come to HR because we're not going to be able to do anything.
Which is just so horrendous. It makes me discouraged as a young woman wanting to go into this industry. I love what we get to do every day, every week. The stories we get to tell. I mean, I've told some stories with you. We host this show. I've done stuff in media relations. I've done stuff all over this industry in a very, very short time.
Yeah.
I've loved those experiences, but it's stuff like this that completely discourages you from even wanting to enter it in the first place, especially as a young woman or a woman of color.
Just the fact that you'll feel completely unsafe and like no one will be there to protect you if you are sexually assaulted, which is one of the worst things that could ever happen to you. And you have to go to work day in and day out and see that person still thriving, still working at the company, and all they did was move you away. Just people's mental healths were talked about in that report of being just abysmal. So I hope that, whether that's Sarver being removed or whatever, I hope that this investigation will at least help the work culture and help people have productive lives while also following their dreams. I mean, working for the Suns, that's huge. That's amazing.
Yeah.
They just went to an NBA Finals, and a lot of them said it was bittersweet because they are happy to see the team do so well after so long, but they know how toxic it is on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. They do. I feel like you and I have even talked about trying to work for the Suns one day or intern for the Suns, and I'm not saying our lives would be totally destroyed if we ever did. If I got the opportunity to work for the Suns, I don't know if I could turn it down, but this would definitely make me rethink, working on that level.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate because that is the highest level.
It is. It is.
The Mercury, the Suns, that's the highest level.
It is. It's truly the highest level.
And let's move on to our future fantasies. Gabby, I know you have one. Close us out.
This sort of goes along the lines of equity in sport. The college basketball season starts in less than 24 hours. When you're referring to college basketball, either refer to it as college basketball, or you got to say men's college basketball and then women's college basketball. Say the gender for both or don't say the gender at all. Please do not refer to it as college basketball when you're talking about the men and women's college basketball when you're talking about the women. It's time for equity in the sport, and equity means using the same terms no matter which side you're talking about. Because if you have to add something on, if you have to add on some kind of identifier to one but you don't have to for the other, it automatically will put the identifier term, that's automatically going to put it in the back of somebody's mind. That's how people's brains work.
Yeah. It's othering them.
It is. It's othering them. Stop othering women's basketball.
Yeah. And I said the same thing back in the tournament when people were like, this is the first time that Baylor has reached the championship in this amount of time. No. The women just won a couple years back.
Yep.
put a qualifier. Men's Baylor's basketball team.
Yep.
And with that, we'll do it for The Future is Female. We'll be back here next time, same time, with our other co-host, Nicole. We feel for you out there watching the Bears game. But like I said, that'll do it for us for The Future is Female on Blaze Radio and BlazeRadioOnline.com.
See y'all next time.